Health matters, and if you're an adult Arkansan getting Medicaid benefits, expect to hear from the state in the next few months about how federal changes could affect what you receive. The Arkansas Department of Human Services is working up to a July 1st soft launch to help most adult Medicaid recipients comply with Medicaid changes that set to take effect next January. They're part of the president's big, beautiful bill, which is now law. They require those aged 19 to 64 to work, volunteer, or go to school at least 20 hours a week to continue receiving benefits. Now, certain patients are exempt from the mandates, pregnant and postpartum women among them. DHS staff say they are building on lessons learned during the last Medicaid changes in 2018.
One of the lessons is making sure that clients have multiple avenues to report information, provide verification to us. That is something that we have adjusted. We have online means for clients to report information to us. They can report by paper.
The state will also be combing through available data to verify whether patients are meeting the requirements without those patients having to provide anything first.
Shalom. This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 12, verse 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. All right. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father, all right, whose name is Yahweh. His name means he is to be, he exists. Bahashem means in the name in the Paleo-Hebrew. All right, Yahweh Shai in the Paleo-Hebrew. That's who this world ignorantly calls JC. All right, cheese and rice. But his name, Yahweh Shai, it means that he saves, he delivers. All in the Rachak Kodash, which means Spirit Holy. All right, double honors to the elder apostles and bishops, the GMS who rule well, teaching this truth on the highways and hedges, risking their lives and freedom to do so. The Hebrew Israelites are not a black-only group. All right, as I just mentioned, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are primarily the Israelites, right? And there are Israelites who look like the other nations but go back to the lineage of Jacob, the line of Jacob. All right, they're Israelites as well. All right, salvation is for Israelites only. All right, the 1/3 part of our people, 2/3 are going to be, destroyed on this side, but they're going to be born into the kingdom. All right, by the 144,000 elect men of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. All right, so that 1/3 part consists of an innumerable multitude of Israelites scattered to the four winds of the earth. But primarily, we're right here, subject to payments, in Babylon the Great, aka America, modern Rome. All right, so as you've seen in the video reported by the news, the Attorney General Griffin, whatever his name is, he's him and 15 or 16 other people, attorneys at that, lawyers, right? They're seeking to pass this piece of legislation, basically penalizing people who are on Medicaid for fraud, and that's not all of them, right? But they're going to do what they call investigate. They're going to investigate certain cases, or they're going to be investigating everyone, basically going through people's files and cases with a fine-tooth comb. So I have some questions that arose. So I went to Google, and this is what I found. So as it says at the top here, Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin joined 16 other state attorneys general in urging Congress to pass the Stop Fraud and Medicaid Act. The proposed law would expand state Medicaid Fraud Control Unit authority to investigate and prosecute fraud committed by benefit recipients rather than being restricted only to healthcare providers. So they were going after the healthcare providers initially. All right, now they're going to go after the beneficiaries, the recipients of Medicaid, if they find them to have committed fraud in some kind of way. All right, so let's look at the penalties of fraud and what constitutes fraud. Let's get the definition of fraud. 1 second.
Fraud
is an intentional act of deception, trickery, or lying to gain an unfair or illegal advantage or to cause a loss to another person. All right, so in terms of fraud, you have wicked rulership. All right, so whenever they propose legislation to criminalize people who are telling them that they need help, All right, you got the average citizens, Arkansans in this case, asking the state for help with medical expenses, and they're looking at it as, okay, well, we need to go after people who we deem are fraudsters, people who intentionally act deceptively, trying to trick us out of something. Because to be frank, the state and federal government are running out of funds and resources. All right, there's no, make no mistake about it. The situation that America is in is a pretty much one of being overextended, resource wise, ammunition wise, munitions wise, monetary wise, diplomacy wise. All right, they pretty much tapped all of their resources as far as diplomacy, because we know diplomacy is something that is facilitated through the state. All right, so when the state runs out of resources, they have to find a way to generate more revenue. All right, and so you have to think, okay, well, I'm thinking in terms of, all right, you got privatized prisons, and those they have stock shareholders. All right, they need to make money. These states are looking at, okay, crime is dropping, the rates of crime are dropping, but yet and still they need to fill those beds. All right, so let me show you what I found. So it says here, when I asked the question, posed the question about or the thought that the states and federal government are overextended and looking for resource grab or cash grab. It says here, under systemic resource strain, that the perception that the state is reacting only after resources have been entirely overextended is backed up by a measurable data on program growth versus oversight capacity. So it answered my question. Well, answered what my comment was, which was, it seems as if the state and Fed are tapped for resources, and because of overextending resources, the Attorney General is suddenly springing into action. It just seems like a too little, too late scenario, right? And I was right on the money. I was right on the marker. All right, and let's get to my next query. So I said, what are the intended potential consequences for those investigated and deemed to have committed Medicaid fraud? Provide a realistic sentencing framework. So let's go to the chart. It says if you committed a crime under $2,500, that's a Class A, right? And you get 1 year in the county, and criminal fines up to $2,500. Now, say you've gotten in benefits, and it's easy to rack them up with medical system, right? You got you got your premiums, you got your your co-pays, you got your cost of medication, and that's not even including treatment, right? Some of these surgeries, they rack up quickly. I'm not even going to get into how much, but this is very easy work right here for them to get a conviction, right? Say you lied on one little question, on your application for Medicaid, right? This is what they're going to be going into. Did you lie on the application? Because then they would use that as license to come after you. And I got into the racial demographic breakdown too, because this is something that they're doing to make money. And I'm gonna show you. 2,500 to 4,900 Class C felony, 3 to 10 years. 3 to 10 years. So remember, they need to fill beds for these private prisons, these profiteer shareholders. They need to fill beds up. It says if you've racked up more than 5,000 to 25,000 in debt, that's a Class B felony. That's 5 to 20 years, because we're talking federal crime. We're not talking state. We're talking federal crime. All right. So they give you football numbers when you're dealing with the Fed. 25,000 or more, Class A felony, easy. 6 to 30 years in a state prison, and fines up to $15,000, right? So think about that, right? And so I asked, like, what is the conviction rate? Because they're gonna, man, look, depending on your Medicaid, your individual scenario, it's gonna get bad out here. It's gonna get bad out here. Look, it says looks like a discriminatory class-based cash grab. That's how I worded it. It says this specific criticism points directly to a major debate in public policy regarding how white-collar crime is treated compared to low-income benefit fraud. All right. It says the argument that shifting enforcement focus towards recipients creates an inequitable system is backed by several systemic factors. The class-based disparity argument. Critics of expanding recipient fraud investigations argue that the system inherently penalizes low-income individuals more harshly for smaller financial amounts. All right, so what it's saying is like the poor of the people. All right, which does definitely include you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and this is primarily who we're looking at when I'm doing this lesson, because we are the oppressed, right? Right, so it's much harsher for the poor than it is for the rich. They get a little slap on the wrist, all right? And rich people can afford proper legal representation, i.e. attorney, and most of them are the small hats, all right? Which Jake don't really got it like that. If we need help medically, like say for instance, I went in, I want to go apply for Medicaid. You think I'm gonna disclose everything 100% to these people? I have to deal with extra paperwork? No. Most people, they shortcut this process, and these people, they know this. I mean, Medicaid's been around for years and years, decades even, right? But just now they're going after people that the recipients, the beneficiaries of this this is a cash grab, man. It's a class-based cash grab, man. All right, it's clear, man. It says never trust thine enemy, for his iron rusted, so is his wickedness. All right. All right, so wickedness is described as it means being morally very wrong. So you're now going to be targeting people, poor people. How immoral do you have to be to go after people? And call them fraudsters when Esau Edom's been on the take for the longest. All right, he's here literally illegally if we want to get down to the brass tacks. All right, but he's looking at everybody else and trying to figure out a way to squeeze water from their rock. All right, even to this day, they're already a withholding corporation. All right, this is already a withholding corporate nation. It says wickedness means being morally very wrong, bad or evil. Right, these people are evil, man. All right. Looking to further discriminate against the poor and potentially get free labor. All right. Well, like I say, those bodies need to fill those beds. You see, we know that Esau Edom can't rest unless he do wickedness, man. All right. They're always plotting and scheming on another way to make our lives miserable. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 16. For they sleep not, except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. All right, so they can't rest, they can't sleep unless they cause Jake to fall in some way, shape, form, or fashion, man. These people literally mark our steps, as the scriptures say. All right, they're gonna go back into the records and see, well, this person said this or that, XYZ on their application, and we found that out to be a lie. We went to the house and investigated, and find out that's not true. And they're gonna get a conviction, man. I looked into the conviction rates as well. Let's see. So I said, hypothetically, how many of these cases, percentage-wise, will be successfully convicted, and what is the projected revenue the state can expect to make in a year of this legislation passing? It said, hypothetically, the conviction rate for officially charged recipient fraud cases would hover between 85% and 95%. That's a damn high percentage. All right, said, but the legislation will likely generate negative net revenue for the state during its first few years. But thinking long term, you're talking about football numbers, these people are going to end up paying that back and some. All right. So the conviction rate 85% to 95%. Why is it so high? Criminal investigators operate under pay and chase frameworks. They do not charge a recipient on suspicion alone. They wait until a multi-agency data match proves definitively that a recipient hid an asset, falsified a tax return, or lied about household composition. So I said, what of the stocks of private prison profiteers? So it said the stocks of the nation's largest private prison operators. There's something called buy the rumor, sell the news. All right, so by the time the masses understand what's happening, they will have already been duped, profits would have already been made by Esau Edom, beginning with the small hats, your lobbyists. All right, your lobbyists, they're going to profit handsomely off of this once the news breaks. But it says the stocks of the nation's largest private prison operators, the GEO Group, New York Stock Exchange, GEO is a ticker, and Core Civic, which is the main one that brothers are going to, as far as the privatized prison. It says they've experienced massive rallies, climbing 96.4% and 58.5% respectively. All right, so it says Wall Street's aggressive pricing reflects a significant windfall stemming directly from expansive federal immigration enforcement, ICE. This is the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, right? Their stocks have gone up. Just like how in times of war, those war stocks go up. Northrop Grumman, McDonnell Douglas, things of that nature, right? Those war stocks, they go up in times of war, just like this is a war against the people, you see? So these privatized prisons, they're seeing an uptick as well in their stock portfolios. And they rubbing their grubby ass hands together, because this is how Esau Edom operates. This is how he functions. This is how, you know, he believes in his heart of hearts that he's going to continue forever doing this and oppressing the people, man. All right, he's set up by the Heavenly Father Yahweh Shem Yahshai to be the wicked of the earth, man. All right, you know, let's get a precept and I'm gonna close it out and get the book of Job. Shalaki. Bear with me. I'm gonna close this out after this, y'all. Give me a sec. Let's see. All right. So, it say verse 15, Job 20:15 say, he hath swallowed down riches. All right, and he shall vomit them up again. All right. The Most High shall cast them out of his belly. And that's plain, man. Like, these people, they benefit off of the poor. All right, so they'll find any kind of way. Even when the poor are asking for help, Esau, he'll find a way. All right, to come after the poor people even. All right, this is just how he operates. He's the wicked of the earth, man. Morally corrupt, the wrongdoer, the accuser of the brethren. All right, according to the scriptures, and he'll, you know, it says though. Let me get that precept. It said Isaiah chapter 26:10. Let favor, all right, favors is good standing. Like favors, like, okay, you know how everybody on the earth, you got the righteous and you got the wicked, right? All under the same proverbial umbrella. We all on the earth together, all right? So favors like grace. It's the sunlight, okay, you know, so you can your crops can grow. You got all those things created for the good, right? It said, let favor be shown to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness. Learn is something that you cleave onto, right? It's a lesson, it's knowledge and understanding, right? It said, yet will he not learn righteousness, man. What is righteousness? Doing what's right, right? Believing in the Heavenly Father, all right? Obeying the commandments. Said righteousness is the quality or state of being morally right. Remember, the wicked is morally wrong every time. It says virtuous and conforming to a divine or high moral law. Remember, Esau considered profane, man. All right, he sold his birthright for a morsel. All right, so he wicked. Anything that's holy, anything that's righteous, Esau's doing the exact opposite. It said, let favor be shown to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness will he deal unjustly, and will not behold the majesty of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. With that being said, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. A Bible brought to this wicked ass kingdom. To the next one, Shalom.